we have a local icon, an individual that I've watched myself growing up, being based in Singapore, one that I'm very honored to have a chat with her in just a bit. We have Jeanette Aw, a local Singaporean award-winning actress, producer, and entrepreneur. She has has ventured beyond just media and acting, and also has got her own businesses that she runs today as well. But I think more so than just what she has done, I think being someone in the public spotlight, she has had her own journeys and experiences in mental health herself. And I will be chatting with her a bit more about how her mental health matters to her, and hear from her how she actually has dealt with her own struggles itself. So without further ado, let me just see if I have Jeanette on board with us. And we have also one of our other panelists. So this will be a three-way panel that I will introduce shortly. All right, let's try and get them on right now. Do give us a second to put them in place. I think we have, all right, perfect. Just that spotlight, right? We have Linda, one of the panelists for this session, and Jeanette, I think Jeanette has need to connect the audio. All right. Hey, Jeanette, you're connected right now. Perfect. I'm going to spotlight your screen as well. I've just done a quick introduction of yourself. Okay. First and foremost, Jeanette, very nice to have you with us. It's a real honor. I was just sharing, I don't know if you connected and heard that, but it's an honor for me because I'm someone that has been watching your show since young. So very nice to have you join this session. I'll just briefly introducing to those tuning in. We've got folks from Singapore and I think across the whole region. That Jeanette is a award-winning actress, producer, and also now today an entrepreneur yourself as well. You've got your own bakery business, yeah, which I'll look to hear a bit more of as well. But yeah, this session, I'll briefly pass over to you to do a quick intro, but just to introduce the panel here. For those that are just joining in, welcome to the Mental Festival Asia 2021. I myself, I'm the moderator of this particular session. I am Theodoric, the co-founder and CEO of Intellect. And we have as well Linda Rin, who is our in-house clinical psychologist. She'll be part of this panel to bounce ideas, to keep it fairly conversational, to trade ideas as to how we see mental health as well. But yes, Jeanette, a real pleasure and honor to have you on board. Please feel free to give a quick hello before we kick off the session as well.
First of all, thank you for having me. I think for me, mental health is a real concern. Yeah, because for my area of work, especially when I'm filming, sometimes we do go into pretty dark characters. And because I do a lot of reading, a lot of research, sometimes it does affect me. And well, yeah. And I also feel that in this time and age, especially with social media and a lot of comparisons going on, it actually is affecting a lot more younger people. So I think that's a very huge concern. And it's something that I feel strongly for. And that's why I want to come on board to just do some sharing, and hopefully it can help other people. And maybe they will be also more open to sharing with other people as well, so that it removes the stigma that, you know, it's like, I'm not well kind of thing. And yeah, so basically, yeah. So before this, I was doing a lot more acting. And later on, I actually founded my own production company, Picturesque Films, where I was producing short films and all. And I actually went for courses to do a pastry course with Le Cordon Bleu. And so this year, I actually opened my own patisserie. So yeah, I'm like juggling quite a few things at the same time, but I'm really enjoying myself. I think that it's keeping me sane by doing the things that I love. Yeah, so I think, yeah, I'm at quite a happy place right now.
It's so good to hear. It's so good to hear of the different parts of your life. And I think, yeah, going from an actress herself towards starting your own production company and now doing something that I believe probably you love, doing pastries and a patisserie as well. So I think I'll dig into that in a bit. But that's really great to hear of your journey itself. I think a big part, as you just mentioned, right, why it's such an honor and why we wanted to have you on board is to share from your perspective your ups and downs as well, right? Being someone in a public figure in the spotlight, I think it would help a lot to help people out there understand that mental health isn't something that they should be fearful about or something that they don't understand, but it applies towards everyone, the best of us and all of us around as well, right? How big, how small, we all struggle with it. So I'll get into that in a second. But let me also quickly let Linda introduce herself. Linda, if you don't mind, a quick introduction, please.
Sure thing. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today and to talk to both of you. Yeah, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been with Intellect for a while now, doing, psychotherapy sessions as well as coaching on our app. And it's just really nice to connect to people from all different kinds of walks of life. I have yet to meet somebody as a celebrity like you. That would be amazing. But still, it's really, really nice to see people with lots of different things going on. And like you say, Theo, mental health is not just seeing people who are in like the really hard parts of life, but it's a huge spectrum, and it's really interesting.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Linda. So we're going to have Linda chime in on some of her thoughts as a clinician, and as we hear from Jeanette as well. Jeanette, just to kick it off, maybe if you don't mind, you've already given a good high level introduction of your journey. If you could tell us a bit more about how you got started in media and where you came today. I'm sure there's been a journey involved, how you got into MediaCorp and then everything else that has come after as well. So maybe a bit of a background as to how your journey has come today.
So I was actually in my final year of university, and I was doing theater studies as well. So at that period of time, we were all going up for auditions, and my friend actually submitted my resume to this company, and we were doing more like theater auditions. And when this company called me, they actually told me to go audition, and it was for this new TV station, then Channel U. And so I auditioned and I got signed on. So that was the start of my journey to like in the entertainment industry. Yeah, and I would say it's actually quite a steep learning curve for me, because like somehow when you're thrown into the limelight, people do take you as a topic of like a conversation topic, and whether you like it or not, you're like, a topic that people discuss whether they know you or not. So it's also something where I realized that we are also subject to a lot of like criticisms. There are a lot of people who will write a lot of things about you, whether they know you personally or not, and sometimes it comes from a very personal attack kind of thing. So it also was something that I had to get used to, especially when I was still quite young at that time. And well, it I would say it is hurtful, like some things that people say, and it's just a matter of like whether you learn how to sieve out the real things and the things that are meant to hurt you. And you learn along the way that, these are the things that you need to keep a balance of to keep yourself sane. And you also learn, I also learned along the way that, there are certain things which I feel would be constructive criticism, which I would take, and what are the more destructive ones that I would choose to ignore. Yeah.
That's a great point here. I think what you mentioned is quite a nice like origin story, whereby you were just like most people like start off as a going through the Singapore system, went through university, chose theater, and went into the entertainment world where you were thrown to a spotlight with a lot of attention on you, whether you like it or not. I mean, for it's good, but also there's a dark side towards it as well, right? And I think one of the points that I've seen as well, especially through, and I'll love to get a thoughts on this later, like how social media has changed things, where it's so much more real time in getting feedback, right? When you are in a spotlight, there's going to be people that love you, that are fans of you, but also naturally people that just are not fans, and because it's behind a wall, it's a lot easier for them to throw comments that they don't care, right? And I think what I found is speaking from different people of different backgrounds, and especially I think just hearing from you yourself, they forget that you are human as well. You are not some, different person that doesn't have feelings. And I think that's something that it's super important to take note that no matter how it appears from the outside, all of us have feelings and have had to deal with it in different ways, right? So yeah, that's a good point. That's good to know. So I'd like to hear a bit more about how that, maybe just briefly into how that has been for you. I mean, from when social media wasn't such a thing, but you had like tabloids, you had like newspapers covering different things, and all the way towards today, right? How has your perspective, and we will delve into this more deeper, but how has your journey with mental health been for you since you started your career in entertainment? And across the years, I know as well, you've been quite open to share about your ups and your downs, which has been, I think, is a great thing to shed light on as well for others of them. How has that been for you, your own journey?
So just now I shared about how it started, and I think that trying to balance all the comments that were coming in is just the start of the journey. But I think that as I went along, and because I'm quite serious about what I do, so when I get a character that probably is on more of a darker side, like I actually got this character with depression. And actually, I did psychology in university as well. So I was always very interested to read about like all these psychological issues, especially when my character requires it. And I actually did look for doctors that dealt with depression, and I actually spoke to them to get more research materials. And also I watched a lot of documentaries. So I felt that I was very, very open to all these feelings and emotions, because as an actor, you need to portray that. And also when I was talking to the doctors, they actually told me like, Jeanette, can you do us a favor? Please do not misrepresent people with depression. So I felt that it was kind of like my duty to actually do it properly. And it's not just an outward, outward show of like, like, oh, I'm so angry. And because people don't realize that actually depression is something that's very inward, and it actually is a lot of self-inflicted harm. They don't go around harming other people, but it's just a lot of pain inside. So this was something that I felt that I needed to show. But during that process of doing it, there were a lot of things that happened along the way as well. And I felt that I was going into it. And it's a very, very weird emotion, because as I was doing all this research, I kind of know what were the things to look out for. But at the same time, I could not control how I felt. Like on set, I could be like, my friends could be joking here at one moment, and then I would just break down and cry. Yeah, so there were a lot of things that I was aware of, but I could not control how I was feeling. And I was just really, really going into a downward spiral kind of feel. And I was losing weight, even though I was trying to eat as well. It's like, it's just something that was affecting me emotionally and physically and psychologically. So I did feel it, and it took me a while. Even though we wrapped up and we finished the drama and all that, it took me about a year before I actually could walk out. And I think for me, having the kind of support from my family and friends, and I think that's important. But the thing is, I'm not the kind who would like openly share. Like I would not talk to all my friends who are there to like tell them how I feel. It's something that I kind of have to resolve within myself. But knowing that they are there, ready to pick me up when I'm like, it's like call them, it's like, are you here? And they'll be there. And I know that, and it gives me this this security. And I think that's important. Yeah. And I feel, there are people who ask me, what are the things that you should not say to someone with depression? I feel maybe not say, you'll be okay. You kind of like just brush them aside. And, it's like, it's such a dark place that for that person, it's not going to be okay. And when you just tell them, oh, you're just having a bad day, don't worry, don't think about it, it kind of just like brushes them aside. And sooner or later, like before you know it, they'll just keep to themselves and they won't want to talk to anybody about it anymore. Yeah.
That's really good point that you raised up. Yeah, I think what you shared, it's really, really good to kind of have that perspective from how you were in your own shows as well. I think a few parts I want to touch on. Number one, that you just mentioned earlier, it's actually not brushing it off, right? I think for us, it's not nothing intentional, but a lot of us, when we see our friends, family struggling, we just tend to tell them like, it's going to be okay. But what we are unaware of is that inside they may feel differently, right? And I'll get Linda to share a bit more about how we can actually touch on this delicately with people that are in distress and come to us for support, right? What are the things that we maybe should say and what we shouldn't say as much as well. But I think to what you shared earlier in your experience, I think it's a very, very unique field to be an actor and to portray characters. I think it's a sign of good of someone that's great at their craft, right? When you really embody the character itself. But the downside is that you really embody the feelings that you wanted to portray, right? I believe, if I'm not wrong, this show was Dreammakers too, right? Was it this one?
Yes.
Where you think Charles Bayer?
Yeah.
So great show, firstly. But also I think to the point here, that's one where, as you said, right, what you embody when you embody the character, you got immersed in it, and you felt the repercussions of actually some forms of depression within yourself as well. And I think one of the key things that I found that's been helpful to always share is that depression is something that not everyone around the person can understand what triggers it as well, right? A lot of times we'll ask, hey, why are you depressed? What triggered it? You grew up suitably, nothing happened, what's wrong? But it's a lot more complicated than that in itself, right? So maybe I'll pass over to Linda on these 2 points. How can we broadly view depression? And also, what are things that maybe we can and maybe shouldn't so much say when we are with people that are struggling?
Yeah, definitely. Before I get into that, I just wanted to say something that really resonated with me when Jeanette was saying she was talking to these doctors and doing that research, and they said, please, don't depict depression in the real way. And I can really, really appreciate that, because there are so many movies and shows where mental health or mental illness is just depicted as being crazy, being violent. Going to a mental hospital means you come out as a violent, crazy person. And I really appreciate shows or characters like yours that are depicting it in a way that is very real and gives people an idea of what mental health and what mental illness actually looks like. I completely agree that saying, oh, you'll be fine, it's just a hard day, usually is not the most helpful thing. I think there are 2 reasons why we do that. Number one, a lot of times we think it actually helps. We think saying something positive helps the other person. That's a bit of it doesn't actually work that way. And then the second reason is a lot of times we're just uncomfortable. And if we say something negative, that might move us further down into more a negative area, which we're a lot of times not comfortable talking about. And I think there's a bit of experience needed being able to sit with an emotion, whether it's your own or somebody else's emotion. And by experience, I mean just practice. If somebody, somebody you're close to, even if it's just a small emotion, they say, oh, I was so angry. I had to wait in line super long at, I don't know, the supermarket today. Even just saying like, wow, that sounds frustrating, instead of saying, oh, but it's fine, you were still on time, or something like that. Even these small things can really make a huge difference and can help you as a person, or us as a person, to be able to realize, like, okay, it's completely fine to have negative emotions. There are certain emotions that we've labeled as negative, and it's completely fine to have those. And then when you come to these bigger conversations where somebody really says, wow, I'm having a really hard time, can we talk about it? Then it's going to be a bit easier to say, okay, I'm ready, bring it on, instead of saying, no, you'll be fine. So I think it's just like an everyday practice that we can all try to do a bit more, to acknowledge what's going on in other people's lives, and not just, think, oh, if we push it away, it'll be fine.
I think the important thing is to feel that someone would be there listening to you and to give you that kind of support. And I think that's very important to that person who feels very sad and who feels that, she just needs that outlet, and there is someone there, rather than just to say, it's like, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And then, that conversation just kind of stops there. Yeah.
I think it's a good point, right? I think Jeanette just pointed a great point, and Linda as well. It's super sound. I think the key thing here is to not try to be a solution for someone who's trying to struggle, is struggling. Like I think Jeanette, as you mentioned, just being there to listen, to be there for them, it's probably more than enough, and probably one of the best things you could do for someone who's struggling, versus trying to solution and say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Maybe it may help, maybe it may not help as well. We don't know, right? I think that a good safe thing to do is to be there for them. But Linda, to your point, I think it's right? I think it's not so much telling them that it's fine, but more so telling them that, empathizing with them that yes, it is frustrating, it was hard for you, but yeah, I think that's just kind of key as well. So my next question for you, Jeanette, and if you already briefly touched on this, right? It's what are ways that you use to cope when you are facing a rough time as well, right? The truth of the matter is that we have ups and we have downs. It's not like a clear line. Sometimes we feel great, and down the line we probably will struggle with something as well when something happens. So what are ways that you use to actually tackle this? I think one of the key things that you mentioned that stands out is having a good social circle, an anchor for you, right? So I think that's something that our previous speaker, David Chua, the CEO of NYC, mentioned as well. Like, getting a good circle around you does help anchor yourself when you're in distress. So on that point, how do you handle it? And what are other ways you use to actually tackle this as well?
So for me, actually, I work in a way where I'm more inward. I would like to rationalize the situation on my own. I'm not someone who would like openly like, oh, can I talk to you? I have this problem, I have that problem. Because many times, maybe because I would say my character, I'm more independent, like since young. And also for my scope of work, you know, it's like, especially when you're a kind of like public figure, people kind of like would be very ready to jump on you to like yeah, so I don't post all these like negative feelings on social media, because I think like for example, social media is some place where I feel I would like to spread a lot more positivity. And when I feel down, it's more about like keeping maybe doing things that I would enjoy. And of course, I allow time for me to cry. Yeah, I think that, yeah, you can give yourself that room to feel sad and to cry. And if anything hurts you, yeah, you're allowed to have that kind of feeling. But at the same time, I also like kind of tell myself like, you know, it's time to snap out of it. Yeah, because the more you dwell on it, the more sad you become, you know, it's like, it's just gonna like you just feel like everything is happening the way it is. And when you expect something worse to happen, it kind of like you will look out for that thing to happen. And it just confirms that, you know, it's like, okay, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, you know, it's like, oh no, it's gonna be a bad day today. And then you step out and then like, you're just looking out for something bad to happen. Yeah, so I feel that sometimes it's all in the mind, how you think about things, how you perceive things. Like you give yourself that room and that time to be sad, to cry, and then after that you just need to pick yourself up and just move on. Yeah,
that's a good point. I'll let Lena comment on this, but just to summarize, I think 3 key things you mentioned that stands out. One is that there are different ways that we cope, right? Some of us are introverts. We like to look inwards, solve it, and then reach out if we need to, but not openly just disclose it if we just because we are struggling. And then there are extroverts as well that are more open to sharing this with like people around you, and it's either one works, right? I think it's important to know what your own patterns are to actually deal with this. That's a good point. I think another key thing that you mentioned that's really interesting, it's actually also, I think it's slipping my mind, but I think also having like that circle where you can actually reach out when you need to, but also in your own pace where it's needed as well. I think to the point, okay, it came back to me. You mentioned that it's in your mind, and actually what you found is that to not dwell on it, it's important, right? Because a lot of times if you keep thinking that it's going to be negative, like, oh, today I wake up feeling lousy, it's going to be a bad day, it probably would happen because that's your default, right? And I'll bring in a point that I think Linda can expand a bit more on. It's this for those that have been through therapy, there's this process called cognitive behavioral therapy, right? CBT. Where it basically means that our actions relate towards our thoughts and then our feelings concurrently as well. So there are things we could do actually, you know, as much as we don't feel like stepping out of bed, you know, when really some of us, when we're feeling like situational depression, something happened, we are feeling low, we just don't want to get out of bed. We just want to stay in bed, don't want to go out, and it's hard to break it. But what is actually, I think a lot of psychologists share is that simply breaking that routine of being stuck in bed helps you change your perspective in that sense as well. So I think it's a great point as you shared, right? Processing it yourself, if that's your pattern, and reaching out when you need to, but also not dwelling on it. So maybe Linda, if you could share a bit more as to what are things, and maybe if you were to build on it or add different points here on how we can deal with when we're struggling as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the tricky part for a lot of people probably listening right now is like, okay, but when is it dwelling, and when am I supposed to think about it? I think that's like a bit of a hard differentiation to make. And I think, like you say, Theo, it's that getting yourself out of bed, out of, you know, wherever you are, that you're feeling a bit stuck in that moment. And I think one thing we can all relate to is going to the gym. A lot of times before the gym, nobody wants to go. We're like, but it would be much nicer to just stay on the couch, you know, and so on. But usually once we get ourselves up and we go, it's fine. We might even enjoy it, and we come back feeling better. And the next time, even though we knew last time we felt better afterwards, it's going to be the same thing. We're still going to feel like, I don't want to go. So it's a thing where rationally we know it will help, but somehow we still don't want to do it. And I think it can be a similar comparison to when you're feeling some symptoms of depression or anxiety or anything like that, where, you know, maybe going out, getting a bite to eat, you know, going for a walk in the sunshine, so anything like that, you know, that would help you and it would make you feel better. But that doesn't make the hurdle to doing it much smaller. It still somehow is a big issue to actually get going with that. And I think the key thing here is to set routines. So to not start discussing with yourself, should I go out in the sunshine? I know it'll be better for me, but I don't feel like it, rah, rah, rah. But instead to say, every morning, 8 a.m., I'm going for a 10-minute walk. I don't care if it's raining even, I don't care. I'm always going for that walk. And setting that in place, knowing that it helps you, and setting that in place, especially in a time where maybe you're doing quite well. So anybody listening right now who's saying, oh, this is not something I have never dealt with, now is the time to set in place the good routines and the good habits that will then help you keep going when things get really, really tough. So then it'll be your normal thing, 8 a.m. You're like, okay, I'm out, I'm going for a walk. And you're not even considering whether this is something you should do or if it will help, and so on. I think there's so many things, but that will be like the one key thing to mention.
Yeah. So setting good routines, I think that's a great point, Linda. One thing I'll share as well as a personal personal experience that I felt has really helped me. It's just literally taking a shower. I think in the morning when I'm feeling really, really bad, or like when you're feeling really down, going get a cold shower really changes your mental state into feeling a bit better. And that has helped me a lot of times when I'm feeling really, really low and just stressed, just overwhelmed. That helps me get off the mental state, just kind of shifts zone. So I think that's one that definitely does help, setting specific routines that we may break still. I think we will break every now and then, but having that idea to actually do this when we need to would help a lot. Thanks a lot, Linda. Jeanette, I think one of the things that I'm quite curious about, and this probably relates to it's more of your recent endeavors with your new patisserie as well. So I think one of the key things that I think helps me individually to feel better, it's when I do things that are meaningful to me as well. When I work on things that I enjoy. For me, it's building a company that tackles mental health, right? Building a company that actually helps reach people. And all of this has different ways to actually tackle it. For Linda, it's actually supporting people with therapy as well. So and different ways, right? When you speak with different people, some of us enjoy making people happy and different things like that. So in your experiences, when you took on the course to actually learn how to make pastries and start this business, what was that for you? Was that related towards your idea of feeling happy and more satisfied in life as well?
In a way, yes. I've always felt that, you know, you should do something that makes you feel happy. And well, I love acting, but I've never thought of acting for the rest of my life. Yeah. And the other thing that I really love would be baking. And I thought that, you know, I wanted to learn and then to empower myself with real skills and knowledge so that I can actually create my own recipes. And that's when I decided I should go for the course and to get my cert in pastry. So it was a journey of maybe like, I started this 3-4 years ago when I went to school, and in between I was like filming, and I went back for my course, and it's a total of 9 months for the Le Cordon Bleu course. And it was also something that I did at my own pace. Like I didn't come back and then immediately open my patisserie and all that. So I think that it's also important to just pace yourself. Make sure that what you're doing is out of passion and not because like someone is like forcing you, or you feel that, oh, you need to do this because, you know, everyone's like expecting you to do it. And I think it's also something that I have learned over these couple of months. So I just opened this patisserie in May this year for Linda's info. Yeah, so it's something that I learned over time as well. Like, you know, initially it's like because I try to you know, fulfill as many orders as I can so people get to enjoy, but I felt that I was losing that kind of passion because I was working from morning to night, morning to night, morning to night. And I was just feeling so burnt out. And also because like generally for me, I'm slightly like anemic. I'm like, I have low blood sugar and all that. So when I'm really tired, it's been a couple of times where I have actually blacked out. So this was big news when it happened, and everyone thought that I was trying to like, you know, like kind of like do some promotion or some gimmick and all thing, but it's just something that happened, you know, and it wasn't anything. And I had to share it because I could not fulfill all this. So basically there were a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of negative comments coming in and all that, but I just have to deal with it. And I didn't feel that I had to explain as well because, well, this is a health condition, and it's something that happened over the years as well. So and I think that, you know, it kind of made me step back and learn to pace myself. So I felt that, you know, this is important because you need to find that passion and you need to avoid burnout. And actually before this conversation, I actually did go on social media to talk to my followers to see what they did to, like, you know, how they would cope if they were feeling like down, or, you know, their thoughts on mental issues, on mental health. And there were some people who actually did share that, you know, learning to say no and to create your boundaries was important. And I feel that many times we're all very, like, you know, we feel there's this burden to do everything that the society wants of us. And being able to say, okay, this is not something I want to do, let's not do it, is very, very important. You know, it's creating that space for yourself to stay sane. And it's not like, oh, everyone's doing this, I have to do this. And, you know, it's like you just feel so pressurized and so stressed all the time. So I think that's quite important. And it was something that they were all sharing with me as well. So I think, yeah, just some things that I felt that was like, we could reflect on. Yeah.
It's a good point, right? Because I think as you said, like, and to the point you mentioned earlier, a lot of times the stresses we put on ourselves are probably from what we perceive the world expects of us, whether it's people that are well, I don't have many fans in my case, but people around us that expect things of us. But in your case, fans and people out there that are expecting, okay, you've launched your new patisserie, you're gonna fulfill orders, and like you're gonna make this a success and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of expectation as to what you need to do. And especially I think the biggest expectation is on yourself, right? To not fail in this, right? And to not let people down in different ways, right? Whoever it is. And I think a lot of it's self-induced. What I think, to your point, and just kind of frame it in a way that I think about myself as well, it's to have your own pace and also to kind of set your own standards of what you want to hit, right? In your case, it would be, you know, kind of setting clear boundaries to how many orders you're going to fulfill, right? And beyond that, you know, we're in hot demand. It's due next time. And for us, it's actually, for me, it's when I draw the boundaries towards when I start work, when I stop work as well. As a founder of a company, it's hard, right? Because you have to be there when something happens. But as much as possible, drawing boundaries, it's really, really key. And I think to a point of what you shared earlier, in your own mind as well, being more lenient, being more, I think, kind of yourself, that you don't need to fulfill anything that people expect of you. I think it's a key point here. But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic point that you raised, right? I think your journey of actually having an interest in baking firstly led you to go and take this program and course, and then eventually starting something in place. But what you found was that it's a passion, but there's also lines to draw before it becomes a bit something that stresses you out as well, right? So I think there's a nuance to it, how we embark on our passions and where we draw lines as well. So I think that's a very good point that I want to draw towards, I think, what a lot of people today can relate to, right? You mentioned about social media in a good way. I follow you as well, and I saw the questions you put out there. So it's so great to see that people actually share feedback of what they struggle with. But in this day and age, when we are so easily exposed to different people's feedbacks, right? Good comments, bad comments, and in a public spotlight, when you are studying your own patisserie and everything else involved, how do you deal with such a common sound and noise and thing in life today? Do you draw boundaries? How do you actually handle this slew of like social media today?
I feel that perhaps because I was first in the entertainment industry, so I'm kind of like very used to a lot of comments coming in from all kinds of people who love you, people who don't, and some people who hide behind an anonymous account and just like, so I feel that it's kind of like the same, but not exactly the same, because I feel somehow in F&B, the comments are kind of different. So it's like starting all over again and getting used to it as well. So I think maybe because I've had this exposure in entertainment, so I kind of like adapt to this a lot faster. But I would say that there are a lot of people who are very supportive, but there are of course those who are very hurtful. And you're like thinking, it's like, what have I done? And do you even know how hard it is in the kitchen? And when fellow F&B post certain things about you, you're like, but we're in this together, aren't we? Yeah, so yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, but all this is something that I learned along the way. It's like there are all kinds of people, and you will have to expect all kinds of comments. And I think why social media today is kind of like affecting a lot more individuals is because people love to compare. And on social media, a lot of people like to post the nicest part of their lives. And sometimes it's probably not even like a reality. Maybe they just like, it's like they wear nice clothes, go to somewhere, and then it's not their home. It's not, and people see that and people feel that this is their life, and they compare to themselves and like, why is my life like this instead? And that's when the comparison becomes very real, and it actually hurts individuals a lot. And also I feel this thing about likes is also affecting a lot of people, especially the younger ones, where they feel like, why am I not getting likes? Why is my friend not liking my thing? And it becomes something that would affect them whether they know it or not. And they feel, and I would feel a lot of them are very addicted to it. So they keep checking. It's like, okay, did my likes go up and all that? And that's the thing that I feel is impacting a lot more individuals in a very negative way. That comparison, that need to feel that you are liked. Yeah, there is no people are posting a lot more things that generate likes rather than that individual uniqueness, and they have forgotten to embrace that they are unique, and that there's no need for a comparison, and there's no need for this platform to allow you to look at someone else and then make that comparison. Because I feel social media started with a very good intention to just let you have a platform to share how you feel, your thoughts, and how it has evolved today. It's something that's totally out of control. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point though. And I'm sure Linda has some points to share here as well. But I think just highlighting, you're right in the sense of, but I think especially for the youth of today, where we a lot of them actually, I think I learned this term recently, they call it digital natives, right? They're born into this whole world where social media is there since they've been there. Whereas for people that are from a bit more mature and older, have actually learned to adapt to this, and they are able to understand that there is a world before this where likes don't matter. It still doesn't matter as much, right? But it's just kind of what the young of today actually have learned to see as the world, right? So I think that it's to your point, you're right. It's a lot of addiction to it's like that mini, high, the dopamine hit of actually people liking, or this person I know like my post and stuff like that. So I think to the point here, it's a good point to kind of take note. It's hard for people listening. Everyone likes recognition. It's human nature. But it's also good to kind of draw the line whereby whether or not you get it or not, know how much it helps or affects you and draw the lines there. Really good point. Lina, any quick points to add on this point on social media and actually how people can deal with it?
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind here also is that if you're doing what you really love and what you really want to share with the world, that's going to affect you even more, ironically, because then, you know, let's say, you know, like you say, Jeanette, pastries is a big passion of yours. Let's say you come up with a great new recipe and you post it on social media and you're super excited about it. It's, you know, being a pastry chef has become part of your identity and it's really something that you're excited about. If then negative comments roll in, it can feel a lot more personal than, for example, posting about something else that, you know, you're maybe not that excited about, but you just wanted to bring it out there. And I think that's something to keep in mind. If something is really affecting you, it's not necessarily only a bad thing. That might also show how passionate you are and how excited you are and how it's really a part of yourself. And then, of course, just like you say, making that differentiation between, is it what I really like? Are these comments true? Are these comments something I should keep in mind? Or are those comments that, you know, are just people behind accounts that are not important to me or my life? So yeah, I think that link between, it's going to affect you more if it's something that you're really passionate about. We often forget, but it's a really important thing to keep in mind as well.
That's a good point. We have, you know, a good number of questions come in, so we're going to mindful of time, we've got a short Q&A to do in AMA with Jeanette. But one quick final point here. I think one thing that really stands out to me is that you are definitely, I think, a role model for many young females, women, and I think general women out there of what you've achieved from your entertainment career towards now doing your own business as well, right? So what are some things that I think for those listening in that are, you know, doubting themselves and like are struggling in some of the forms, whether it's mentally or emotionally or anything at all, what's something that you would share that keep them going to actually striving for what they want to work towards as well, the women out there?
I feel that one thing that probably worked for me or has always been my way of doing things is knowing exactly what I want. So like even starting my production company, it's been something that I've planned for many years. I've actually incorporated the company. It's just waiting there for me to do something with it. And I just feel that I'm someone who believes, like, you know, if I want something, the universe will kind of like tell me when it's ready to do it. Yeah, so it's just some things that I feel I believe in. Like, you know, I think that when the timing is right, I will just do it. And when I do it, I don't think about anything else. I won't think about like, oh, I'm going to do this short film and it's not going to do well. And I'm not sure. I feel you just go in with that conviction that, you know, and when I want to do something, I feel the most important thing is if you don't know anything, don't be shy to ask. You know, don't be afraid to ask and show them that you don't know, because I feel a lot of people feel very like shy, or they don't want to admit that they don't know some things, and they feel like, you know, it's their ego, or they're too proud to ask. But I feel that when you sincerely ask someone for help, usually the people will be very, very willing to help you and teach you. And this is something that I feel this is very, very important. Yeah. So when I started this production company and I did my short film, I had so many people who were willing to come on board and to help me. And even when I was like opening my patisserie and all that, I felt that it was at a point where I felt I was ready. And it's not something that, everyone's expecting me to open. Should I open it now? It's more about like when I am ready. Yeah, so it's more about my pace, what I believe in, what I feel it's time to do, and then I will move on from there. And I feel you should not have any self-doubt as well. You know, it's like don't doubt yourself, because if this is something that you really feel for, somehow you will make it happen. Yeah.
That's a good point. So I think just kind of summarizing 2-3 key highlights from what he shared. I think one of the key things is that do it in your own pace. Don't feel obliged to actually, I think importantly, don't feel pressured by what society thinks as the pace to go, right? You always read into, oh, this person's succeeding, that person's succeeding. So we're all inclined to feel that this has to happen right away. But the truth is that it wouldn't happen right away, typically so, right? So take it at your own pace when you're ready for it. Another key thing you mentioned is for those listening in, it's to be confident, not confident in itself, but be okay to reach out for support and ask for help when you need it. Right? I think it's a good point that same for me as well. I found it in the tech world and the startup world that we run a tech company. A lot of founders, people out there are very willing to help if you simply ask, right? Like not everyone's going to accept, of course, but you'd be surprised how many people are willing to carry it forward as well. So I think it's a good point that for those to note that it's feel confident to ask questions as well. And I think the last point is actually, as you mentioned, like doubt. To the point of doubt, naturally you will slowly gain confidence in what you do. But you will have, I think what he said is have faith that you actually figure it out eventually, right? It may not work out at the start. Will be mistakes, likely so, but eventually somehow, if you're passionate enough about it, you will figure it out in the end as well. So 3 really great points, Jeanette. Thanks for sharing this. Great points. Really insightful so far. The last piece, right? We've got a few minutes left. It's for Q&A, right? I think we've got a lot of great questions from fans that are writing in live, as well as people that have shared questions ahead of time. So I'm just going to pull up a few ones that stood out there. I just want to pick your brain on. So one of them is this, right? This came in from your Instagram questions here. For those that are, this person asked, right? Paul Kark, I think is the Instagram handle. What can you do or to get out of the downward spiral when you're facing one? When you know you're going to a downward spiral, when you're in a rut, what are things that you can do to actually get out of it?
Yeah. I feel remember the things that you once enjoyed and try to engage in them. Right. For me, it was really just moving away, taking a break, and taking a break from that environment that was giving me a lot of these negative emotions. And I think maybe really the support system. Yep. Yeah, because sometimes it's really hard to tell someone that, or to describe that kind of darkness that you are in. And everyone has got a different experience. It's very hard to generalize and just say that, oh, it's going to be like that for everybody, because everybody gets into it in a different way. And their trauma could be even more than me or even less than me or whatever. It's like you're never going to be there to fully understand, but you maybe just have to be more empathetic and to try to listen. I feel sometimes it's very hard for people in that space and place to be able to describe and reach out, because many times people kind of like not want to engage in such negative emotions, and they will just move away from you. And sooner or later, you feel that you're really all alone and it just gets worse. So I feel maybe it's really for you to remember what were the things that really made you happy, engage in those activities, speak to really close friends. I'm sure there are family members and friends that who really know you and who have seen that transformation and who would be able to understand that you have moved from place A to point B. So I think that's important. Yeah.
That's a great point. So having an anchor as well is kind of being empathetic and open to listen to people around you as well. I think it's a great point to share. One question that's come in live, one that I would pose to Linda, because it's quite a clinical one, but I think it's a very important one that we should address as well. So this anonymous attendee has asked, one of my friends with depression has been shutting out everyone close, and keeping in touch with them seems to be more so affecting them than actually being supportive. So how can we help people like this who are keeping us out and depressed? Because I'll share why it stands out. Why mental health is close to me is because I've been through therapy myself. I had anxiety attacks when I was young, saw a therapist, but also amongst my own peers and friends, one of my best buddies also is going through depression. Took a year off really detached, but thankfully really coming back to his own place now. But it was hard, right? When people aren't in a space to listen, how do we actually reach out to them to be supportive? Linda, what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, this is a great question because it sounds like this person tried to reach out to their friend. They got rejected, so to say. The person said, no, I don't feel like talking right now. And they didn't give up. They didn't say, well, then that's your problem, like sometimes people do. No, this person, or the person who asked a question, said, you know what, I need to find a way to help them. And I think that shows that they're really a great friend and something that they can definitely use. I guess there are a couple of things to note here. Number one would be maybe consider your approach. When you engage, what is your reaction? How do you talk to them? Do you say, like we just said before, what most of us say, things like, oh, it'll be fine, or you'll feel better tomorrow, or things like that. In that case, maybe you're not quite reaching the person you're trying to reach. Or maybe, if you're contacting them online and, sometimes looking at screens and being on social media just isn't what that person might need or can do in that moment. So I guess step number one would be consider how you're reaching out to them and see if there's anything you can or would like to change, just to see what would work best for the other person. Step number two is that's okay. Sometimes other people, we can't help them, as even if we want to help them so much. It doesn't mean you should give up on them. It can always mean that, hey, you can periodically check in and you can say, I'm not going anywhere. If later down the road you would like to talk to me, or you would want to be with me, I'll be there. I'm not leaving. I'm just waiting here until you're ready. I think that's something that's really important to say. And then, of course, you can always see if there's any way that you can support them in getting professional help, whether that's sending them a list of great psychologists in the area, or saying like, oh, I found this place and it's quite cheap, or whatever it would be, without saying you should do this. Just saying, hey, I found this, might be interesting to you. If not, that's completely fine. I think these are kind of the three key things to keep in mind here.
Great points. I'll just share briefly. As I shared, one of my good buddies actually went through such a situation where he shut almost everyone out for about a year or 2 years. And I think what helped a lot was being patient. We had a whole group of friends that were together. Some of them checked in with him periodically, went to his place, and slowly just was patient as he got and found his footing, but also offered support to actually have very controlled meetups where it's not too big of an exposure, small social circles, small groups that helps them comfortably slowly pick themselves up as well. I think that's things that, but ultimately I think being supportive and letting them know that you're there for them, that you care for them, that someone actually thinks about them, it's probably one of the more helpful things that I found was helpful for my buddy as well. And probably if they're going to shut you out, you can't force your way in, right? But just being there would help as well. Jeanette, anything to add on this point in particular that you think could help?
So actually, it's the same as what you have said, because like just now I was sharing, like I would be the one that would be shutting everybody out, but knowing that they are there, and when I'm ready, they will be there for me. And I think that's really important, because it's not like you're alone in the whole world. And knowing that, they'll be there and they're just waiting to pick you up when you are ready to talk to them or to share your feelings with them is very, very important. So I think that's something. And yes, like what Linda said, to actually tell them that, just share when you're ready. We'll be here. We're not leaving. I think that's kind of like assurance that your friends are going to be here. Yeah.
Amazing. That's a great point. Great. I know we've got a lot of questions. I don't think we can go through all of it. You've got a great fan base, Jeanette. A lot of folks are asking questions. But I think first and foremost, thank you so much, Jeanette. It's been a real insightful session hearing about you and your own experiences and your own journey, right? From when you started off in the entertainment world, ups and downs when you really embodied characters, all the way towards now starting your own endeavor, your own business, where there are different stresses and pressures, but how, as much as everyone may know, may not know, you are human as well, and you also actually deal with things in a very human way, right? Having your own space, reaching out for help when you need to, and having a good social circle around when you need it. Super insightful, and thank you, Linda, as well, for the great tips from a clinical point of view. I think it really helped balance and gave perspective here. I'm going to let you go. This has been such a great session. I'm sure everyone enjoyed this one. Really good, I think, participation from everyone here. So thank you so much, Jeanette. It has been insightful. Appreciate you sharing more about your own journey in mental health, as it really does spread awareness for this whole conversation as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeanette.